Let me introduce myself. My name is Bruce Matthews. I graduated from FCHS in 1973. I went to Eastern, graduated with a mechanical engineering degree from U of I. I have a master's degree in engineering from Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. So I've been around. Like I said, I grew up here. I want to welcome you to this wonderful little event that won't happen for another 200 years or so. Yeah. So, but before we have our main speaker, I'd like for you to hear about local events that are coming up this week. And the first person on the list is Ken Harris.
Hello, most of you know me. Used to be from Fairfield, now I'm over at the big city of Wayne City, living out in the boonies, which is wonderful, by the way. Some of you know me as the astronomy teacher out of Frontier College. I've been doing that for 32 years now. So I have been the local authority on the eclipse coming up. I've done programs starting in January all the way up through this week. I have 2 more to do. They're not of the quality that you're going to see tonight, but they're okay. And I am a member of the Evansville Astronomical Society. It's a group out of Evansville, Indiana. We have an observatory that's open to the public in Linville, Illinois. Or Indiana, I'm sorry. And it's only about an hour and 10 minutes, and it's almost all interstate. So it's pretty easy to get to from here. I'd like to invite you over. Every 3rd Friday night, we have a meeting and a program in which we have speakers from all over the United States now, because our program director just happens to be the president of the Astronomical League, which is a 20,000 member organization, so he has a few contacts. So our quality of programming has gone up considerably, not just local people, but from all over. With that, I'm pretty much done. I am doing a program next Thursday. No, it has to be this Thursday.
Yeah.
Better be this Thursday, and at the library. So if you don't get enough of Eclipse talk tonight, you can come hear me then. Like I said, not as qualified as our speaker tonight, but I may be a little funny.
On the 8th, during totality.
Oh, during totality, if you're in town and you want somewhere to go, I will be at the college in front of Mason Hall with at least 3 solar telescopes set up. So if you want to watch it before and after and that kind of stuff, and we'll be set up there. You can't miss me. I'll be the guy with the tent and the telescopes. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. If you've never looked through the eye of a telescope at any of the planets or any of the structures that are out in space, please get that opportunity. You can see it on a page anytime you want, but to see it in real life, it's amazing. It's fun. Right now, I want to introduce you to Claire Vaughn. She's going to come up and talk about all the opportunities that you have this weekend, and including Monday. So, Claire Vaughn.
Hi guys, I'm Claire Vaughn. I wanted to say Ken Harris will be speaking Thursday at the library at 5 p.m. I don't know that he said that, so if you want to see him talk, Thursday 5 p.m. at the library, and that's April 4th. We have been working our little booties off, planning a fun weekend leading up to the solar eclipse. I work with the City of Fairfield. I'm the owner of Raylan James Marketing. I work with the City of Fairfield all year long, but this past year we've been focusing a lot on the solar eclipse and just what it can do for tourism for our community. So we hope you'll come out and enjoy all the events that we have planned. Kicking off with Ken on Thursday at the library, and then on April 5th, which is Friday, we're going to have food trucks set up at the Wayne County Fairgrounds starting at noon, and there's going to be a craft and vendor fair out at the fairgrounds as well starting at 1 p.m. And then you can come out to Little Texas and go Tatum and the Dirt Devils. That concert, we're going to open the grandstands at 5 p.m. And there's going to be a beer tent, food vendors, the craft fair will be going on, and then obviously live music. So we'd love for you guys to join us. Tickets are on sale now. You can get them at the Chamber of Commerce, Carnaby Square, Save-A-Lot, RJ on Main, or you can get them online at SolarEclipseFairfield2024.com. Those tickets range anywhere from $25 to $50, so we price them very affordable. And we hope you guys will come out and support that use of the rec funds, because we've worked hard to get the Little Texas here. And then Saturday, we're really focusing on downtown family fun events. We're calling it Downtown Extravaganza. We're going to have inflatables set up on the parking lot, the city parking lot on East Delaware, right past the post office. So inflatables, we're doing chalk art, having a dance party, bubble machine, anything a kid will enjoy. We're going to have face painting and touch a truck, but we didn't want to utilize our emergency vehicles, so we're going to have some interesting ones like Josh Vaughn's bringing tractors and semis, and we're going to have a hearse there from Johnson and Vaughn. You never get to see the inside of one while you're alive. You thought it might be fun, I don't know, but you get to go and check them out. You can look inside, sit inside, and just kind of get to experience the different vehicles. So that'll be fun. And that's going to be in the Le Mans parking lot. Once again, food trucks will be happening all day, Wayne County Fairgrounds, at that parking lot as well. And then the craft and vendor fair. And then we're going to have live music at Fusion at 5 p.m. with Connor Atterbury. He was an FCHS graduate last year, and he's a very talented local musician. That's of course free, but it's going to be at Fusion Coffee. And then at 7 p.m., there will be a free concert at the Fairfield Elks Lodge with Bo Tatum and the Dirt Devils and Lucas Tex. And then we're going to have a Sunday fun day at Leo French Park on Sunday. And we're going to have inflatables again, food vendors, games, that type of stuff. And Jason Mason's going to be giving a church service at noon. We're going to have live music 1 to 3, duck races by VPF at 5, buck for a duck. You can buy them ahead of time or buy them that day. And then they're going to show an outdoor movie that night at 7:45. And then on April 8th is the total solar eclipse. So we don't have any events planned that day. We're really just going to try to focus on safety of our residents and our visitors. But there is a breakfast fundraiser at the Senior Citizen Center, and that's $10 a plate. And then there's some local viewing at Frontier Community College, at the Victorian on Main. I know JW Saloon is having a viewing party. But yeah, we will be at the Craft and Vendor Fair or at one of the viewing parties. So anyways, if you want to find out any more information, you can go to SolarEclipseFairfield2024.com or Solar Eclipse Fairfield, Illinois on Facebook.
You got a few of those out there.
Yes, everyone grab a flyer. And this has a handy little map from Shauna Williams. She made us a little map that has all the things going on and where they're at, and then the schedule of events as well. So.
Thank you for this. So this weekend, starting Thursday with the talk at the library, all the way through Monday afternoon, there's no reason for you to be home and be bored. So, okay. Michelle Nichols is here to talk to our community, and the discussion of her coming really started last June when there was talk about having events for the solar eclipse. I thought of Miss Nichols because I heard her presentations on moon rovers and Mars exploration, at local libraries before, and I heard her interviewed on all sorts of space topics, making the news media like WGN Radio, WGN TV, WBBM Radio and TV up in Chicago, and local PBS stations. This presentation is actually paid for by NASA. Michelle Nichols is Director of Public Observing at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago and has worked at Adler since June of 1995. Ms. Nichols holds a bachelor's degree of science in physics and astronomy from the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana and has a master's of education degree in curriculum and instruction from National Louis University. Ms. Nichols leads all of the Adler Planetarium telescope, observatory, and public sky observing initiatives and events. Since 1999, Ms. Nichols has been a popular local speaker and gives hundreds of presentations to more than 130 different public libraries, community organizations, and senior citizen living facilities in Chicago and the suburbs, Indiana, and Alabama. Now, how she got to Alabama, I haven't got a clue. Maybe she can explain that, but here is Michelle Nichols.
How's everybody doing? Great. Excellent. Now I'm going to grab the gizmo that will advance my slides. I am so delighted to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to come to Fairfield. Your town is amazing. And I was listening to my bio going, wow, that's impressive sounding. However, I have to say, I cannot do everything I do by myself. I do have an extremely important helper, and that is my staff member, Hunter Miller. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself because he is an integral part of everything I do at the Adler. So I'm going to pass the microphone over to him briefly. So, oh, you've got one. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Hunter. I'm a public observing educator at the Adler. Don't have quite the impressive resume that Michelle has to show yet. Yes, thank you, Michelle. But you'll be able to find me just outside after the talk today, where we'll be handing out solar viewers to get you ready for the eclipse. We've got a little piece of the moon with us as well, a lunar meteorite that you can check out, and answer any extra questions that you have, whether it be about the eclipse or about any kind of cool space astronomy stuff that you're wondering. So I'll be around today.
So, I'm here to tell you, I know that the crowd is not enormous, but that's okay. I am so happy to be speaking to all of you because you are interested in what's going to happen in the sky in about a week. And, but I'm here to tell you that I will hopefully, or actually Hunter and I will hopefully make you the most cherished members of your families because we brought solar viewers with us. And these are, they're like glasses, but they are to help you safely see the sun. I guarantee you've got family members somewhere who are probably freaking out because they're now hearing about the eclipse and they realize they don't have enough solar glasses. So we brought a couple hundred with us. And so you are welcome to take as many of them as you want, because we don't want to cart them back to Chicago. So please, at the end of the program, feel free to take more than one. However, if any of them are not spoken for, it's okay. They will be given to schools in the Southern Illinois area. But these are just like the glasses, and I want to explain really quickly how they work in case you need to leave before the end of the talk. And you don't get to hear this part. So basically, you hold them in front of your face, then you look up at the sky, and the only things that I can see through them right now are the very, very bright lights that are on me right now, and they look very, very dim. But then you look down and then take them away. And again, these are just like the glasses. You just hold them in front of your face instead of wear them on your face. They work exactly the same. And the key point is the silvery material faces toward the sun. The black side of the material faces toward your eyes. Simple as that. So if you happen to want to take several, please do. Please hand them out. Anyone who you think needs one, anyone you want to send them to, as long as they get them before April 8th, they will be great. And if you're going to mail them, I would highly recommend wrapping them up in a piece of paper before you put them in the envelope, just so they don't get punctured or ripped or torn. But you're here to learn about the solar eclipse, and that is why we are here, and it is just so much fun to be able to talk about an event that is so accessible. And your town is making it even more accessible with all the other fun things that are going on. But I call a solar eclipse accessible because this is not an event you have to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to be able to see, right? It is in the middle of the day. It is also something that needs very little equipment, very little expensive equipment to be able to see it. That also makes it accessible. It is going to happen over your heads, which is amazing. And it's something that I love to tell people is an extraordinarily rare type of astronomical phenomenon. It's very sensory. Raise your hand if you saw the total solar eclipse in 2017. Most of you, excellent. So this, I'm going to preach to the choir. When I say this was a sensory experience that you saw, you felt it, and you heard it. You saw it in the sky. You saw the people's reactions around you. You felt the temperature drop. You felt the wind either pick up or die down, probably die down. You got to hear the crickets chirping. You might have gotten to see birds roosting in the trees. You might have gotten to see the reactions of people around you. You might have felt your own reaction. This doesn't happen all that often, where you get to see something so sensory and have it be something happening out in space. For a brief moment in time, there is a direct lineup between you, the moon, and the sun. It is a personal line that you can draw in the sky. And that is rare. We often throw around the word rare, but in this case, it really is true. But I'm going to tell you a bit about it, so that in case people ask questions about, hey, what exactly is going on in the sky? I want to arm you with the information that you might need to be able to do that. So first off, I started using that word rare. And a lot of times, yeah, you'll see it written that such and such a thing is rare in the sky. No, this really is rare. We don't get a solar eclipse all that often. On average, they occur on Earth once or twice a year, maybe. And they don't occur for everybody. You have to be in the right part of Earth in order to see it. So if you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, I don't remember a solar eclipse happening once or twice a year. Well, that's because they aren't always visible to everybody. But also, they are rare because it's a special alignment of the Earth, the moon, and the sun. Solar eclipses happen when the moon gets in between the Earth and the sun. Well, the moon goes around the Earth every 29 and a half days, approximately. Greatly sped up in this animation right here. But you would expect to get a solar eclipse every time the moon got in between the Earth and the sun. We call that new moon. That's the phase of the moon called new moon. But the reason this doesn't happen every 29 and a half days is the moon's orbit is tilted with respect to the Earth. And so normally the shadow of the moon cast into space misses the Earth until it lines up just right where you've got the shadow of the moon falling on the Earth. And if you are underneath that shadow at just the right time, you hopefully get to see the solar eclipse. As long as Earth doesn't get to remind us that it is still here and put some clouds in the sky, like I kind of did experience in 2017 for that eclipse, but that's okay. Sometimes Earth decides to just remind us, hey, I'm still here. But we do get this rare astronomical phenomenon. This is also rarer, that you've got a total solar eclipse occurring in basically almost the same spot on Earth as it did in 2017. Normally, a spot on Earth will see a total solar eclipse on average about every 375 years. But you've gotten to see one in just under 7 years. Why? Because sometimes total solar eclipse paths cross. And a lot of times they cross over water. Earth is mostly covered in water, so that makes sense. Or they cross in places that aren't terribly easy to get to. Maybe they're out in the middle of nowhere. But this occurred in a populated area within easy driving distance of other populated areas. That's why Southern Illinois really became a hotbed of people wanting to come and see the eclipse. They saw this on the map and went, I want to go there. And so we had people come in droves in 2017, and they're going to do it again in 2024. It's really exciting, and something that I tell people, if you get the chance to go see this, please go see it. Well, you don't have to go anywhere. It is happening right here, so that makes it really special. All right, the neat thing is, if you get an alignment for a solar eclipse, you also get an alignment for a lunar eclipse. You don't necessarily get to see both of them. You don't necessarily get to see either of them. You don't necessarily get to see, you might get to see one, or none, or both. So just a heads up, there is a partial lunar eclipse in September of this year, September 17th. We won't get to see the associated solar eclipse for that one. There is a total lunar eclipse in March of next year. So put that on your calendar. That should be one of those spectacular moon turns red lunar eclipses. So keep an eye out for that as well. Well, this animation right here was from the 2017 solar eclipse, but I wanted to point out something extraordinarily important. Why solar eclipses, total solar eclipses, are also rare, not just for the alignment. The shadow region of the moon, where you can see this, is very small. Notice from that 2017 eclipse, and we all know this eclipse path, we probably have it burned into our brains at this point. So that region was only 78 miles wide. That is the special spot on Earth you needed to be for those special 2+ minutes to be able to see totality, to see the moon 100% cover the sun. This next eclipse is, the shadow region is going to be a little bit bigger. And so the animation that I've got on the screen next, I think it's going to play, there we go. So this next eclipse, what's happening is the shadow is going to come up from the southwest, up through southern Illinois, and to the northeast United States. The shadow region where you get to see totality will be a little bit bigger. So therefore, instead of 78-mile wide spot, it'll be about a 115-mile wide spot. So what do we get out of that? Well, a bigger shadow means it takes longer for it to go over you, which means you get totality for longer. So for here in Fairfield, it's about a 4-minute totality, give or take. And so in 2017, it was a little over 2 minutes. I'm not sure what it was here in 2017, but at most, it was a little over 2 minutes in length. So why does that happen? The moon's orbit around the Earth is not a perfect circle. So therefore, the moon is sometimes a little bit closer, sometimes a little bit farther. When it's a little bit farther, the shadow's a little smaller. When the moon's a little bit closer, the shadow's a little bigger. So this time around, the moon's a little bit closer. So that shadow is a little bit bigger, takes a little bit longer for it to go over you, and you get totality for longer. So hopefully, Earth doesn't get in the way. All right, but this is what the shadow spot, that dark inner shadow spot, looks like. And this was taken from space. That last animation, actually I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to see if I can remember how to do it the right way. The other way. There we go. Oop, hang on. I'm getting the hang of it. There we go. So that shadow region, that dark inner, that red spot, that is where you can see totality. But the other colors indicate where you can see a partial solar eclipse. And so the Chicago area, outside of southern Illinois, we're all going to see a partial solar eclipse where the moon partly covers the sun and only partly covers the sun. In the northern Illinois area, won't see it quite as much, but down towards southern Illinois, we'll get to see it for longer. If you are outside that shadow region, you don't see the eclipse at all. The moon's shadow, even that larger region where you get to see the partial solar eclipse, that region doesn't cover the entire Earth. So our friends down there in South America, most of them won't get to see this eclipse at all. So again, contributing to how special this really is. But that dark inner shadow region, that's where you want to be. That's where you were in 2017. That's where you're going to be in 2024, in about a week, just under a week. It's hard to believe. I've been thinking about this thing since 2017. Our friends at Southern Illinois University Carbondale started getting phone calls from people wanting to know when the football stadium tickets were going on sale. The day after the Eclipse in 2017, they had people calling on August 22nd, 2017, wanting to know that could they be there on April 8th, 2024. So this is really great. Now the entire Illinois state will get to see a partial solar eclipse. And so up in the Rockford area, about 92-ish% of the sun will be covered by the moon at most. Down toward central Illinois, 95%, 96%, 98%. And then that region outlined where you get to see the totality, the little images right there. That's, again, where you get to see totality. The closer you are to the center line of totality, the longer totality is for you. Out toward the edges, the shorter totality is. If you know anyone who's right on the edge of the path of totality, please implore them to go a few miles in. There's always a little tiny bit of uncertainty as to exactly where the edge of the shadow is. So if you know anyone who's in that region, just tell them just a few miles in, that's all you need to go to be able to hopefully guarantee that you're going to see totality. Those edges, there's always a little fuzziness on those edges. But you are in good shape right here in Fairfield. Okay, so what are you going to see? So, April 8th, 2024, starting at, I don't have my notes on me. It's approximately 12:40, just about 12:40. The moon is going to start to peek over the edge of the sun, so you can just see the lower edge of it at about 5 o'clock on this image right here, the screenshot. And the moon is going to slowly creep across the edge, or the middle of the sun. One thing that you can look out for is what happens when the sun is covered by the moon at least 50% or more. You may have seen this in 2017, you may not have. You may not have known to look for it. So what I want you to do is when the moon covers the sun by at least 50% or more, start looking down at your shadows. One thing you may not ever realize is how fuzzy-edged our shadows are. If you're looking at especially the shadows of the chairs on the floor, they're fairly distinct, but they're still kind of fuzzy. There's extended light sources here. So these edges are kind of fuzzy. Look around when the sun is covered by at least 50% or more at the shadows, as it's covered more and more and more. As you get more and more of a sliver of sun, the sharper your shadow edges get. Definitely look down as much as you might be looking up at the sky. Then, at about a minute prior to totality, so you can look up exactly what time totality will be for here. It's approximately, it's right around 2 o'clock, but you can definitely get the exact time. Start looking for, on the ground, you might want to put down a white sheet on the ground. Definitely start looking for shadow bands. And what that is a phenomenon that may or may not be visible during this eclipse. They aren't always visible. They aren't always easy to see. And it's a phenomenon that happens when you've got just the tiniest little sliver of sun left in the sky. And that sunlight is shining through different temperatures and densities of air above your head. And what it creates is ripples of light on the ground. We definitely saw them after totality in 2017, so I'm crossing my fingers we get to see them again in 2024. You've seen a similar phenomenon in the past. If you've seen light shining in a pool of water and the ripples of light on the bottom of the pool of water, it's a similar type of look. But in this case, it's a pool of air above your head. And you can check that out on the ground. Just put a white sheet down on the ground, anchor the corners, and look for that again when you've got just the tiniest little sliver starting about a minute prior to totality up to approximately the point of totality. And then again, about a minute after, up to about a minute after totality, you can look for them as well. All right. So, again, white sheet, nothing fancy. All this is a tarp. that someone clamped to a pole. It doesn't even need to be that fancy. Just put the white sheet down on the ground. That's all it is. And this was a setup that somebody had in 2017 to see the shadow bands for that one. So definitely do not need expensive equipment for any of this. And so what the shadow bands look like is something very similar to this. You'll have an easier time seeing them than you will be able to photograph them. They're ridiculously hard to photograph because the contrast is just a very subtle effect. Your eyes will be able to see it probably a little more easily than your camera will. You might have to, if you take a picture, you might have to bump up the contrast on your photo to be able to bring these out. It's just, the human eye is an incredible scientific instrument to be able to see all of this stuff. Whereas a camera, sometimes you gotta help the camera out to be able to see it. All right, then, just prior to totality, about 3 or 4 seconds prior to totality, the sliver of the sun has disappeared, and all that's left is tiny dots of sunlight shining through valleys on the edge of the moon. You are experiencing the topography of the edge of the moon itself, and the entire bright surface of the sun is covered except for these little last bits of sunlight. We call those Bailey's beads. And again, it pays to know when totality is going to occur for your area to the second. And so that's why it's good to look it up. But those estimations are plus or minus 3 or 4 seconds. So there might be a little tiny bit of wiggle room in what you see for totality listed for this area. But try to get it for your exact location if you can, because that will help you be able to spot a phenomenon like Bailey's beads, and it will look something like this. Now, you can glance at them without your solar viewer. Just be careful. Just like we don't stare at the sun on any other day of the year, we don't stare at the bright part of the sun during a partial solar eclipse either. There's nothing inherently different about a solar eclipse that makes it any more dangerous, except the bright part of the sun is too bright for our eyes to look at. We tell kids, don't look at the sun. And we do it during a solar eclipse too. Don't look at the sun. The only part of the sun that is safe to look at during a total solar eclipse without your solar viewer is totality. But you can glance at Bailey's beads. If you look at it, just think to yourself, put a clock in your head, 1/1000, and then if you still see them, put the solar glasses back on. Just very normal, everyday stuff to be able to just be conscious of. Don't stare at the bright part of the sun. It is too bright for our eyes to look at. However, you are experiencing the actual edge of the moon with those little bits of sunlight. And then finally, we get to totality. This is what everybody's waiting for. If it happens to be cloudy that day, I hope it's not, but if it happens to be cloudy, April in Illinois, who knows, it might be cloudy, then it'll still get dark. You are still going to experience the eclipse. You just might not see it directly. So be prepared, it will get dark. But this is probably something very similar to what you saw in 2017. You will see the corona of the sun's outer atmosphere, that white wispy area that is only visible during totality. It's always there. It's out there right now. We just can't see it because the bright part of the sun is just too bright. It overpowers the corona. We need to block out the bright part of the sun to see the corona. And so that's why I tell people, if you are on the edge of the path of totality and you're just outside it, are you going to see this? No, absolutely not. The bright part of the sun is still, even a little tiny bit of it is still too bright to be able to see the corona. Only the lucky folks here and fully within the path are going to be able to see this. The sky above you is dark. And what would be really interesting to note is if you remember how dark the sky was in 2017, which it wasn't terribly dark. I don't know if anyone else has that recollection, but it wasn't quite as dark. Totality just didn't last quite that long. It might be a little bit darker this time because totality is lasting longer. You're in a deeper shadow. So you might notice the sky actually does look a bit darker than it did in 2017. So note that in your heads. Now, what else can you look for in the sky during totality? Well, there will be 5 planets in the sky during totality. So to the upper, so you probably can't read the words, but that's okay. I will translate. To the upper left, you'll see Jupiter. No problem seeing Jupiter. It'll be pretty bright. Just above and to the left of the sun and moon combo, Mercury. You might have trouble seeing that. It might be overpowered by the corona. We'll see, but it is there. You just might not see it. To the lower right, Venus. No problem seeing Venus. It'll be the brightest one of the bunch. And then down to the lower right of Venus will be Saturn and Mars. Probably Saturn might be slightly easier to see than Mars, but you'll know which one Mars is because it'll have a slightly orange color to it. So up to 5 planets visible in the sky during totality. So definitely check that out. But please save most of your attention to the corona. Because I tell people, I get asked a lot, should I bring a telescope or binoculars to look at the planets in the sky? And I say, absolutely not. Because you can see those planets that night when the sun goes down. So you'll be able to see Jupiter, oh, maybe not Mercury, maybe a little close, but you'll get to see Jupiter after sunset that night. You'll see Mars and Saturn and Venus the next morning when the sun before the sun comes up. You don't have to take precious totality time to look at the other objects with telescopes and binoculars unless you want to. Just be extremely careful because you will not have solar filters on your telescope or binoculars during totality. So I don't want you to lose track of time and accidentally be sweeping across them with your telescope or binoculars when the sun returns. So just be really careful if you do that. All right, then finally, totality ends. The moon continues to slide across the face of the sun, and the sunlight shines through one particularly deep valley on the other edge of the moon. And that phenomenon is called the diamond ring. And so you'll lose the corona, that diamond ring will get brighter, you'll think to yourself, 1/1000, and then you'll put the solar viewer back up over your face. And then everybody else who has traveled here will think to themselves, I need to get on the road. We hope they don't, and we don't experience the traffic jams like we did in 2017. But you can enjoy the rest of the partial phases of the eclipse. Just do it safely with the solar viewer. All right. And look for those shadow bands after the eclipse. The moon continues to slide, and then it's over, a little after 3 o'clock. So about 2.5 hours from start to finish, with totality in the middle here for about 4 minutes. So fingers crossed everybody gets to see it. All right, there are other safe ways to view the eclipse. Say you've let someone borrow your solar viewer. You actually can make a pinhole projector. You probably are familiar with this. Just grab anything in the house with a hole in it. You could grab the pasta strainer from the kitchen, and each one of the little holes projects images of the partial solar eclipse. You can make a crosshatch with your hands. And I'm going to try to do this and hold the microphone. Actually, I'm going to use that microphone for a second. I think it's still on. Yes. So what you can do is make a crosshatch with your fingers and line up your fingers with the sun, project an image down onto the ground. What you're going to do is you're just going to adjust the spacing between your fingers to make little tiny pinhole spaces. And just like the leaves on the trees have little pinholes, you can make little tiny pinholes. And so that image is showing what you're doing with your hands, but you're doing that to create a pinhole image of the eclipse. And you can grab anything with a hole in it. If anybody actually does this, if you grab a Ritz cracker and you successfully get a pinhole projected image of the sun through a Ritz cracker and you get a partial eclipse image, please tag the Adler Planetarium with that image. We want to see it. We want to see this work. So definitely think about anything with a hole in it. The pasta strainer, an index card with a push pin hole in it, the pegboard that holds up the tools in the garage, anything with a hole in it, including the spaces in between your own fingers. And actually, you don't even have to cross-hatch your fingers. You could just make a little tiny space, just like that, and project an image of the partial eclipse done on the ground. Again, solar filters, solar glasses, solar viewers, how to directly view the eclipse. And yes, these are legit, and again, please help yourself when you go out after the talk. One thing that I also wanted to mention is Hunter brought with our special lunar meteorite. We have a piece of the moon that we want you to interact with. We brought it here so you can touch it. We brought it here so you can check it out under the microscope. So definitely check that out as you leave. And it's a meteorite, meaning a rock from space long ago, slammed into the moon. Rocks blew out into space. They traveled through space and landed, in this case, in the Sahara Desert. And it was identified as a moon rock because we have the rocks that the astronauts brought back in the 60s and 70s to compare rocks to. And so this really is a legit piece of the moon. And we want you to be able to interact with our piece of the moon here so that you can also enjoy the moon up in the sky, up there. So, I would love to know if anyone has questions. I would love, Hunter's got the microphone. I'm gonna take a quick drink of tea. My voice is holding out surprisingly well. I'm really surprised. Hunter's nodding at me like, yeah, oh my God, I can't believe it did. So I'm gonna take a quick drink of tea. If anybody has a question, raise your hand, and Hunter will come around with the microphone.
Yeah, if you have any questions that you think would be beneficial for the group, you can ask now. But you're also welcome to come up and chat with us afterwards if you have other questions that come up. Any now, or everybody's chomping at the bits to get their solar viewers? Yes, question up here?
Can you explain like the importance of being in totality as opposed to on the outer edges of that? That was something in 2017, like I was in Mount Vernon, and I didn't realize how big of a deal it would be to actually be in totality.
Yeah.
And how much different of an effect you get when you're in totality.
Yeah, so totality versus a partial solar eclipse. A partial solar eclipse is an instrument playing. Totality is a rock concert. It's kind of hard to describe to people who haven't experienced it, which is why I'm glad so many of you have. You get it. You've seen it. The difficult part that I sometimes have when I give talks at libraries is people ask, why? Why should I go see this? Because people literally travel all over the world to be able to see these. There are people coming from other countries to be able to see this. It is something that is, the way I try to help people understand is what you think you know the sun and the moon, until you see totality. And then you realize how different this arrangement is. I think I won't surprise anyone by using the description that I've used when I've described the one that I saw in 1999, where you instantly, in that second when you see totality, you instantly understand why people were terrified of this phenomenon in the past if they had no idea that it was going to happen. Because up until a couple thousand years ago, we couldn't predict eclipses. Nobody knew how to predict these. And even when they started to be able to predict them, it still didn't completely take away the terror and the fear of seeing something so different, seeing day turn into night in a matter of minutes. And it really helps you understand we are part of a connection to the sky. And but again, seeing that arrangement for something so familiar, but seeing it so differently.
Michelle,
Yes.
tell them about, you were at the stadium.
Yes.
Tell them about the stadium during totality.
The stadium during, well, I'm going to tell you about the stadium before totality, and then I'll tell you about the stadium during totality. 14,000 people, all there to see the sky. We're all gathered to see the sky. That is the reason everybody decided to go there. They needed to be with other people.
In Carbondale.
In Carbondale. And I'll never forget there was at one point, and they've got this on film, which I think is kind of crazy. They've got this on film. When we were planning all the activity to happen in the football stadium, the folks who run the sports department, the athletics, runs the football stadium. And they're like, we got this. We're gonna run it like ESPN College Game Day. I'm like, you get it. You get what, if you've seen ESPN College Game Day on a Saturday morning during football season, you've seen people going nuts. They got the signs up and everything. Everybody's having a good time. There's music, there's cheerleaders, there's all sorts of stuff. And that's exactly what it was. They had music, they had cheerleaders, they had the band, they had the mascots, they had people dressed up in Star Wars costumes, and it was, you remember how hot it was that day. It was 116 degrees on the football field that day. But it's why totality felt so good. But at one point, and this is the point that they got on film, they decided to play Michael Jackson's song Billie Jean, and there were Girl Scouts dancing in the crowd. There were cheerleaders doing their cheerleader stuff. They had just people going crazy. They had me, luckily not on audio, but I was singing along, and so they got that on camera, so I got footage of that, which is crazy. And there's that moment for a second, you forget where you are, and you go, oh my God, this is amazing. This is cool. This is where I need to be. And then we start to, and that was maybe about 40 minutes prior to totality or so, something like that. And then we started realizing, about a half an hour prior to totality, uh-oh, I see a cloud. And then more clouds, and then more clouds. And then right as totality hit, clouded up. And the clouds disappeared after totality. They were clouds that were created by the little mini tiny environment there in the football stadium. Hot concrete, hot people, humidity, air, all of it, the temperature drops. What happens when you have temperature dropping in very humid air? Clouds. And I talked to someone about a month ago who experienced the same thing in a football stadium in Nashville. There's something about that hot environment with humidity that created clouds right over us. Colleagues of mine were outside the football stadium, right outside the entrance, maybe about 150 feet from where I was standing. They saw about the last 30 seconds of totality. I saw totality right at the beginning, kind of within kind of wispy clouds, and then it disappeared. And there were people in the stadium that did not see totality at all. It depended on where you were within a matter of a few hundred feet. If you were 500 feet south of the football stadium, you saw all of it. There's a video, I don't know if you remember, there was the rock concert festival that was held outside of Carbondale. Ozzy Osbourne played Bark at the Moon, yeah, and it came on at totality. There's a video, and I've seen it, of someone took that video, they were facing the stage, Bark at the Moon's playing, Ozzy's playing, and then they said, and this is the cloud that was over the football stadium in Carbondale. They pointed it out on the YouTube video, so yeah, rub it in. But still, I did not talk to one person who was angry. That environment was just insanely cool and insanely unique. And it's just something I will never forget, and I do not mind one bit that I didn't really get to see much of totality, because I got to experience all of that. Maybe they were angry afterwards, but they didn't tell me, which is good. Any other questions?
Could you speak a little bit about the precision of the calculation, the rotation of
Yes.
the Earth,
Yes.
Moon,
Yes.
orbit?
Yep.
That's pretty amazing to calculate that so precisely.
Yes, and we have to know everything from the rotation of the Earth, the moon's orbit around the Earth, the size of the moon, the shape of the moon, the shape of the sun, the size of the sun, There was actually just a recent recalculation, re-estimation of the path of totality that came out, I think, yesterday, or within the last couple of days, that says, uh-oh, if you are right at the edge of totality, you might want to think about going a few thousand feet over to your east, because the size of the sun is not 100% known. You'd think that's something we'd know, but it's not quite something we know. And the size of the sun in the sky, if it's slightly bigger, then the size of the shadow will be slightly smaller at the edges. And so that might affect some of those folks right at the edge. They may think they're in the path and they may not be. But all of it plays a part in this calculation. But we're able to get it to within 3 or 4 seconds of accuracy, which is incredible. Science is awesome. So anyway, question back here, and then we have one here.
So when you're looking through a telescope, it's really important to get rid of all the extra light. And how important is that during this? Like, do we need to, if you're going to be at home, do I need to try and turn off all the lights so that I can see it better?
Oh, are you talking during totality itself?
During totality.
So for looking at, say, the corona of the sun or something like that, the nice thing is the corona is about as bright as the full moon. So light pollution, I have people ask that a lot. Does light pollution affect your visibility of it? As long as you're not underneath a street light at that point, and as long as the town has done a decent job, and maybe if there's any street lights that have any darkness detectors on them, to maybe disable those for totality, so that all of a sudden all your street lights don't come on in the middle of totality. Please check that just in case if anybody has any. You got it, yeah, exactly. Make a note. But the corona itself is about as bright as the full moon, so you should have no trouble seeing it in a telescope. Just be extraordinarily careful that you're only doing it when you know for certain that totality is not about to end, because you will not be using a solar viewer on your telescope at that, or a solar filter on your telescope. For any part of the bright part of the sun, you need a specialized telescope solar filter to safely view the sun. But you'll need to remove that in order to see totality. So just be really careful. And honestly, pair of binoculars would work fine, but also be extraordinarily careful, because you won't have solar filters on those as well.
One thing just to add to that really quickly, because something like binoculars or a telescope are amplifying the view of the sun that you're seeing, it will do more damage quickly. If you plan on using anything like that during totality, it can be smart to set a timer when it starts, so that you know, okay, we've got 4 minutes of totality here. Right when it starts, I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes, and when that timer goes off, I'm going to stop looking through the telescope. Just look up in the sky, appreciate the effects on the environment around you, because looking through a telescope at the sun without any filter in place, not during totality, will blind you, basically instantly.
Yep.
So you have to be really careful.
You cannot get your eye away from the telescope fast enough, or the binoculars fast enough to prevent eye damage. So that's an excellent piece of advice. Whatever totality is, subtract a minute and a half, and only look through the telescope at that point. As soon as that timer goes off, that solar filter goes back on that telescope or those pair of binoculars, or you put it all away, and don't use it for the rest of totality. That is an excellent piece of advice. That is why Hunter is here, to remind me of excellent pieces of advice like that. All right, another question over here.
I had something that is kind of also with the calculations. Do you guys use a Python-based algorithm to kind of calculate those, or?
The amount of calculations involved would probably be more on the order of more of your supercomputer type calculations, but it's something that they've been able to do. We know when solar eclipses are going to occur for the next 1,000 years. We know what dates, we know the times, we know the locations. It's that really minor, little tiny bits of the edges. That's where it gets extraordinarily complicated. And so lots of computing power, lots of, all the estimations you've seen up until now assume the moon is a perfect circle, which it's not. So doing stuff like that, and the more complicated they get, the more computing power you need. And so yeah, it is big computers at the U.S. Naval Observatory and places like that that are cranking out these sorts of calculations. All right, any other questions? I love these questions. Y'all good? Y'all excited? Yeah, me too. Thank you to Bruce and the city of Fairfield. And it was really not that hard of a task to get me to come down here, because we were definitely already planning to come down, and I said, hey, we're on our way down on April 1st, how about that? And so he's like, sold. So that was an easy one. Thank you everybody for your attention, I really appreciate it. I wish you all clear skies on April 8th, and please check out the meteorite out in the lobby. Take as many solar viewers as you want. If they are all gone, I will be a happy camper. So thank you so much.
Let's hear it again from Michelle and Hunter. Thank you. I also want to thank the Fairfield Christian Church for letting us use this facility. It really is very wonderful facility to be used like this.
And you've never given a talk like a talk can be given with the smell of Easter lilies up here. This is awesome. This is probably the most wonderful place I have ever given a talk for the community. This is awesome. Thank you to the church for allowing us to do this. This was amazing. And it smells really nice up here too. Thank you.
So, again, thank you for coming. I hope her enthusiasm has spread to you to enjoy what's coming up in 1 week. Again, please pick up the information out there for the events and take a look at the moon rock. So thank you very much for coming.